You, who have been single for over 20 years, have never even touched a woman's hand, but overnight, you have become a top scumbag. When you are carpooling home with the school beauty, ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the desire penetrating system. As long as the host sends 666, the Eye of Desire can be opened, and the desire list of each person will be presented to the host. Gu Qingfeng, the school beauty. Desire first, want to find a secret man and have an underground relationship. Second, want to indulge in drinking recklessly once. Third, do not want to return to the dormitory tonight. Upon seeing this, you were overjoyed. If you could discover everyone's most intimate desires, wouldn't you be able to easily manipulate anyone? You hesitated for a moment, then suddenly asked Gu Qingfeng, by the way, I know there's a bar nearby. Do you want to go have a drink? Now. Okay. Although she was very surprised in her heart, she couldn't resist her own desires. Driver, just stop at the Nightfall bar up ahead. With the driver hitting the brakes, Yu and Gu Qingfeng arrived at the entrance of the bar. Although it was already late at night, the Nightfall bar was still bustling with people. Many women wearing high heels and tight skirts are waiting for wealthy people to seduce them, while more men are looking around with anticipation, hoping to get a woman drunk tonight and take her home. You sit at the bar, chatting and drinking. Your eyes, however, are scanning the entire bar, seeing everyone's desires clearly. Sitting at the red booth is a wild girl with a beauty score of 6, holding a glass in one hand and moving her body wildly to the rhythm. Her first desire on the list is, her boyfriend cheated on her and she's in a bad mood. Now she must find a man to retaliate against him. A girl wearing a white backless long dress, with looks that can be rated around 7 points. A man in a suit is leaning in next to her, whispering something in her ear. The first item on the woman's desire list, welcome to join the AIDS family. And the wish list of this man in a suit is, drink this glass of wine. After I take you, I will also want your kidney. 1,000 people, 1,000 faces, all different. You watch all this while a smile appears on your lips. What are you looking at? Gu Qingfeng drinks up the wine in her hand and looks at you thoughtfully. Nothing, just haven't been to a bar in a long time. Feeling a bit out of place. Why don't you want to go back to the dorm? What? I said, why don't you want to go back to the dorm? You repeated it straight to the point. Gu Qingfeng was startled by your sudden question. How do you know I don't want to go back to the dorm? You picked up the wine glass and said playfully, if you wanted to go back, would you still come out to drink with me? He. Gu Qingfeng quickly laughed. I don't want to go back. It's just that the girls in the dorm always talk behind my back, saying I'm hanging out with rich people behind my back, saying I do anything to become famous and make money. You were stunned by the words. Indeed, this is also your understanding of her. With the conditions of my family, do I still need to go out and do these things? Gu Qingfeng pursed her lips, and then finished a glass of wine in one gulp. To avoid suspicion, I won't even drive my own car to school, but still can't stop those women's mouths. So that's how it is. I didn't expect this girl not only looks beautiful, but also turns out to be a young rich woman. But for such a good condition girl, why would she want to find an underground man? You look at Gu Qingfeng's stunning appearance, puzzled in your heart. Chu yu shu what about you? Why suddenly want to invite me for a drink? At this moment, she is becoming more and more interested in you. She rests her chin on her hand, staring at you intently. You smile slightly, not avoiding Gu Qingfeng's eyes. You even have a hint of mischief, wondering what she would do if you read out her wish list. Because I plan to move out recently, and I also want to raise a small dog. As you speak, Gu Qingfeng looks somewhat surprised. Oh my, why is he so similar to my thoughts? You said, then picked up the glass in front of you and drank it in one gulp. Also, because tonight I want to get drunk recklessly. Okay. The woman's eyes lit up even more. Then today we won't go home until we're drunk. Just then, a man from the far end of the bar walked over with a glass of wine. He had originally intended to find Gu Qingfeng, but upon seeing you next to her, he walked towards the girl who wanted to seek revenge on her boyfriend. Gu Qingfeng saw you staring at that girl all the time. She smiled slightly and said, is she prettier than me? You shook your head. Of course she's not as pretty as you. I just feel a little sorry for her. Why? Because she's going to be drugged and taken away. What? Gu Qingfeng was shocked, looking incredulously at the girl, because on that man's list, it includes drugging, injections, control, and making the prey serve clients to earn money. The next moment, Gu Qingfeng covered her mouth in astonishment. The man and the wandering girl quietly put something powdery into her wine glass after they got together. How did you know? Gu Qingfeng became a little anxious immediately. Because I saw it in advance. You must not mention the wish list. What should we do? Should we go? Gu Qingfeng immediately stood up, but you grabbed her hands. Don't move. It's useless for you to go. Those people over there are all his accomplices. We don't need to get involved, because that girl's boyfriend has already arrived. Gu Qingfang looked up and saw an anxious boy at the entrance of the bar, his eyes searching for his girlfriend. Oh my, how does he know all this? Gu Qingfang looked at you in shock, originally thinking of having a drink, but it seems like there will be a fight at the bar. You pull Gu Qingfang and are about to leave the bar. Late at night, at the entrance of the bar, you and Gu Qingfang stand on the street waiting for a car, with the music from the bar booming behind you. Chu Wen and Nan stood on the street. Ah! A scream came from the middle of the bar and the bar music came to an abrupt halt, followed by the sound of various bottles breaking. Sure enough, there was a fight. Nanner had her little mouth open the whole way. Elder Chu Wen, are you a god? How do you know? How can you know everything? Why, you could tell right away that the boy was trying to drug him, and how you knew? Chu Wen reached out and stopped a cab, turning back to smile at Nanner. Didn't your acting teacher teach that? The most important foundation for learning acting is to observe the characters. I usually like to pay attention to details, so I can probably tell something about a person by their demeanor, the expression in their eyes. The two men sat in the rental car and took off. Nanner giggled as she looked at Chu Wen's handsome side face. So, Senior Chu Wen, can you guess what I want to do now? Master driver, go to the Wanda Mandarin Hotel. A small smile spread across the corners of Chu Wen's mouth. Is that what you want to do? Nanner suddenly snorted a laugh. She was not the least bit repulsed. This man, so interesting. Chapter 4 Anytime. Chapter 4 Anytime. Her eyes flowed, glancing at Chu Wen from time to time, and various thoughts popped up in her mind from time to time. Chu Wen, on the other hand, was calculating in his mind. I didn't expect things to develop so quickly. Today's everything was surprising enough, but it was also a bit too unexpected. It's almost the end of the month now. Chu Wen didn't have a dime inside his pocket, and I'm afraid that there was only $1,000 in WeChat. Luckily, there's a credit card with a $10,000 limit. Today, if you want to take a girl of the level of Nanfanger to a room, you can't open a shortcut hotel. That would be too much of a drop. Each of the two men had something on their minds until the driver kicked the brakes. Arrived. Chu Wen looked up and saw the front door of the Wanda Mandarin Hotel. Wait. After Nanner got out of the car, she subtly tugged on Chu Wen. Do you want to bring a bottle of wine up? Didn't you enjoy the drink just now? Chu Wen looked at her with a smirk. Well. For some reason, Southern Child was actually a little nervous now. Chu Wen didn't care either. Women, they want to do something out of the ordinary once in a while though. But it's hard not to be a little nervous when you actually have to start. Chu Wen could probably understand her current mood. Nanfanger was afraid that she couldn't let go and wanted to drink more to ease her tension. Just call room service. At this time, Chu Wen did not hesitate at all. He looked at the tight yoga pants on Nanfanger's body, as well as her pure and nervous appearance. His mouth was already a little dry. After a moment's effort, the front desk attendant handed the room card to Chu Wen. Her eyes slanted to skim over Nanner, and Chu Wen was able to see that the first item on the receptionist's list of desires immediately turned into, if only I had a front and back body like hers. Thanks. He took the room card and turned to lead Southern Child, whose little face was already red, up the elevator. There had never been any moment where Chu Wen had this feeling of being in control of his life. An hour ago he was still envious of other people's lives, but in the blink of an eye, the rich white schoolgirl of the third year of the Shanghai Theater was already leaning on his side. Ding! The elevator is here. Two net-faced teenage girls carrying small bags came up to the front and rubbed shoulders with Chu Wen. Based purely on a man's aesthetics, the poise is basically around a 7. However, the thoughts in their hearts at the moment were glimpsed by Chu Wen. What kind of vision? Damn, that size 8 is short and small, with a flabby belly. These rich old men really don't know what type they like. It's a good thing I wasn't chosen, or else I'd have to serve that greasy fatso and be tossed around by him for a night. It's disgusting just thinking about it. It's just $3,000, I'm not that bad. Heels clattered lightly. The two sisters and Chu Wen passed by on the wrong side of the road. High-end periphery? Chu Wen froze in his mind. $8,000 a time, $10,000 a night, $30,000 for a customized nationwide package kind of thing? I've only heard about it before, never seen it in person. I can't believe I met two at once today at 3 a.m. in this 5-star hotel. In the middle of the bustling Magic City, there are really wonderful scenery that many poor people can't even dream of seeing in their lifetime. If he were to put it on ordinary days, he would not be able to help but look at such women twice. Perhaps in his heart he would feel that they looked very pure, or were the goddesses in the hearts of countless people. But after you have this ability yourself. Whatever the woman was, he could see it at a glance. Chuan brushed past the two extremely beautiful girls, but did not show any interest in them. He was wondering in his mind. Why is it that I can see not only their lists of desires, but also their deepest subtexts? But what about the underlying thoughts in the minds of others, including Southern Child, that I can't read? Facing the two extreme peripherals, Chuan didn't show any thoughts. This impressed Nanner, who had been keeping an eye on Chuan along the way. She herself was a beautiful woman, and at the same time, her family was very rich, so she had come into contact with too many of those rich boys and whatnot on a regular basis. But he had never seen a man like Chuan who met a beautiful woman without looking at her. This brought a moment of immense satisfaction to the Southern Child's heart. Upon entering the room, Chuan called room service, and after ordering 2 bottles of red wine, he sat comfortably on top of the sofa. In front of the hotel's floor-to-ceiling windows is a river view of the Huangpu River. Sitting on top of the couch, there is an immediate feeling of being in control of your life. No wonder Su Wenxiang in the movie desperately want to stand in the highest building in Magic City to look down, so this taste. Really cool. While Chuan was experiencing this feeling that he had never experienced before, Nanner stood a little overwhelmed on the room's sheepish carpet, her hands unsure of where to place them. It's going too fast. It's all moving too fast. Her heart beat violently as she looked at Chuan's handsome figure and cheeks. Wanting to do it, and actually doing it are two completely different states. I have to say, the South Child now, actually a little goat. Let's change shoes first, when the wine comes we can chat. Chuan looked up and noticed Nanner's embarrassment. Suddenly his heart warmed. I can see that this girl has absolutely no experience whatsoever. Actually, Chuan didn't have much experience either, but it couldn't be helped that he could always see what Nanner was thinking. So in this relationship, he is firmly in the driver's seat. Aha! Watching the Southern Child, who had never even looked at anyone else in school, now looked like she was ready to be picked at any time. It was something he'd never even dared to imagine when he'd seen Southern Child in the rehearsal room before. I'll change my slippers first. Southern Child hated herself very much in her mind at this time. She had fantasized countless times in the middle of the night about what kind of man she would be spending time with. She had envisioned many wonderful scenarios, moonlight, romantic wine, etc., etc. Now that these fantasies were clearly on the verge of being realized, why were they now too nervous to even look at him? Facing such a nervous Southern Child, Chuan had a playful smile hanging at the corner of his mouth. Only Southern Child walked over to the closet and took off her sneakers and replaced them with slippers. She turned back after changing and seemed to adjust her mind. I've never had one yet, please. Please. Southern Child took a deep breath afterward. Senior Chuan, our relationship. Please don't tell anyone. Chapter 5 Be rich in life. Chapter 5 Be rich in life. Chuan also didn't expect this girl to actually say such a sentence after gathering her courage. Just then it was a secret between the two of us. Nanner nodded. Women also have needs, and their needs are sometimes no less than men's, except that they are good at hiding them, and it just so happens that the current Chuan is good at digging them out. But what surprised him the most was that it was Nanner's first time. Then the rumors circulating around the school about Nanner really aren't even halfway credible. Thinking of this, Chuan couldn't help but feel a hint of curiosity towards Nanner. Because Southern Child was so nervous right now, the first item on her list of desires was just wanting a drink. Drink as much as you can, drink so much that you let go of all your defenses and reservations. Because of this, the rest of her thoughts Chuan was unable to know for the time being. Of course it's confidential. Chuan nodded. Just then, too, the room doorbell rang, and the waiter outside the door had brought over 2 bottles of red wine along with a sobering glasses. Chuan and Nanner were sitting in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, enjoying the night view of the Huangpu River. Maybe it was in this private atmosphere, maybe it was because of the red wine. Slowly, the whole Southern Child was much more soothed. Amidst the chatting between the two, she was also always amused by Chuan. After her emotions eased, Chuan said almost every word in Southern Child's heart. It was a feeling she'd never had in over 20 years. Before a while, the bottle of red wine had already reached the bottom, and Nanner's slightly drunken eyes were fixed on Chuan. There seems to be a little paroxysm of pain and helplessness deep inside. If it wasn't for that thing he was about to face. Just like this, and he's squarely in love, squarely holding hands on campus, squarely in the microblogging show Love How Good It Should Be. Unfortunately. Why are you drinking so fast? Shuwen put down the wine glass and saw that Nanner's complexion appeared to be a bit off. The next moment, Nanner had closed her eyes, her chest heaving. Kiss me. Early the next morning. When Shuwen woke up, it was around 1 o'clock noon. The sun shone in from outside, and the white and messy sheets showed the story of all that had happened here last night. Shuwen rubbed his head, sat up and looked around, not seeing Nanner, so he lay down again. It had been late last night and both were raw and nervous about exploring each other. It was a toss-up until morning. Buzz. The phone shook. Senior Shuwen, it's time to get up. There's a theater group auditioning in Yenjing today, so I rushed the plane and didn't wake you up. Shuwen smiled slightly and immediately messaged back, Roger. Have a safe trip. After sending this text message, Shuwen finally sat up from the bed after briefly remembering how good everything was last night. Yesterday Shuwen personally verified that Nanfang Air was really the first time right. In the process, Shuwen always felt that although her movements were raw, but she was very, very active to the point that Shuwen felt a little out of the blue. This is perhaps related to the fact that the rich young lady grows up in an environment that is too depressing on a regular basis. The other Shuwen didn't think much about it. Since we have now gained psychic powers, it would be a waste to use it only to speculate on the inner workings of a woman's mind. What's more, Shuwen's wallet was now empty, and last night he added 2 bottles of red wine, so when he calculated the check, he would have to pay $6,000 or $7,000 more anyhow. Gotta find a way to make some money to do that. The next part of his life, what he had thought about before, he was going to try. What hadn't been thought of before, Shuwen was going to try, but all of this required a lot of financial support. The internet is right. Money is the only thing that can make people feel happy. Just like the 2 peripheral girls seen in the hotel corridor last night, if they were placed on the street, men would only think that they were goddesses that could only be viewed from afar, but not played with. But for the rich people who walk around in high-end hotels all the time, they are just a bunch of playthings that come and go when they are called. The world is inherently unfair. If he hadn't gritted his teeth and spent out so much money to come here last night, Shuwen wouldn't have even had the chance to come into contact with the real upper-class society. Although this is only the lowest part of the phenomenon among the upper class. That wasn't something he could understand as a poor student who had just turned 22. That rotten, extravagant, indulgent and enviable high society was another kind of life that the previous Shuwen had never had the chance to experience. A moment later, Shuwen took out his cell phone. Hello? Luyu, where are you? I'm shooting with the group in Sanya, brother, text me what's going on. There were noisy voices on the other end of the phone, and Luyu's lowered voice. Come on, if it's in the casino, it's in the casino, what drama are you talking about? Shuwen scolded. Luyu is Shuwen's classmate, but when this kid was around his junior year of college, he ran around on the pretext of internship and often borrowed money to gamble with people in the dormitory. Still owe Shuwen $2,000 to this day. In this kind of time when he wanted to make money, Shuwen's first thought was Luyu. Brother! How do you? I'm just going to take a small gamble this time, I'll borrow your money. Cut the crap, where are you in Sanya? I'll come and try my luck too. Shuwen directly interrupted the next half of Luyu's sentence. What? Luyu visibly froze. Wasn't Shuwen averse to gambling before? How could he come to gamble as well? Is this guy crazy? Chapter 6, Iceberg Beauty Li Jai. Chapter 6, Iceberg Beauty Li Jai. After hanging up the phone, Shuwen immediately went out. Luyu, this kid, doesn't have a half-truth in his mouth. He said earlier that he was following the group in Sanya, and then he said he was gambling in Sanya, only to hear the news that Shuwen was really coming. He immediately changed his story again and said that he was actually in Mordor and hadn't traveled that far. 2 hours later, Shuwen met Luyu in front of a shabby restaurant in Suwei district. Luyu was wearing a set of hoodies, looking haggard, with red bloodshot eyes. Brother, did you really decide to gamble? Let's not talk about this first. Shuwen sat down opposite Luyu, ordered a bowl of noodles, and sized up his classmate Luyu, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. Name, Luyu. Wish list, 1. Borrow $500,000 in cash to pay off debts. 2. Dissuade Shuman from gambling, or he will be in huge debt like himself and have nowhere to go. 3. You must bet alone tonight, try to turn it over in one night, and never gamble again. Expand to see more. Years of dormitory roommates, Shuwen saw Luyu now this inhuman and ghostly appearance, his heart also felt a little heartbroken. Especially when he saw that Luyu still had a hint of classmate love in this situation and still wanted to persuade him not to gamble. Chuan was more or less touched. How did you get mixed up in this? Cut. Lu Yu lowered his head and smiled bitterly. It's not because of the gambling addiction. Brother, maybe my reputation is rotten in the ears of my classmates, and I know that my words are worthless and untrustworthy, but the reason why I asked you here today is because, brother, I still have a little conscience. Lu Yu took a deep breath and raised his head. Don't bet. You don't know how disgusting that group of people really are. You've already seen what happened to me. I don't want you to do the same. Chuan heard this sentence. Know that this brother is really for their own good, although making money is the current top priority, but 9 out of 10 gambling this reason he still understands. Let's not talk about being able to see other people's wish lists, even if you can see right through the Civ Cup or the bottom card, who can guarantee that the casino won't cheat at the last moment? So Chuan continued, not gambling. I want to ask you, what do those rich people usually do after gambling? The goal is very clear. If you want to make money, you have to start with rich people, and the kind of people who gamble well. Gambling is a state of mind, as a great man in history once said. A man may not gamble, but he must have a gambling spirit. Success or failure in business is a gamble, so is the means of chasing women, and whether or not to get involved in an industry is a gamble. A man with a gambling spirit is a man to befriend. Tonight, Chuan is going to use this point to bet on a future that belongs to him. Of course, for him, the odds of winning this bet were almost 100%. Usually both those who have won and those who have lost money go to the clubhouse to indulge. Chuan replied. Win or lose go? Yes, those who win want to celebrate, and those who lose want to chase away the bad luck. Chuan leaned his body towards the chair and laughed. This rich person who comes out to play is quite particular. Liu continued, to say gambling, this inside the doorway way I can be clear, the whole magic underground field there is no I Liu do not know the place, brother you even is to find the right person. I'm not betting on it, I don't want to become as inhuman as you. Then you want to. You instead tell me first how you really want to make money? Egu, anxious me. Chuan pondered as he got up and left, followed by the nagging Lu Yu. How much money do you have on hand now? Why do you ask? Lu Yu looked wary at the sound of money. What's the point of making money without capital? Chuan almost slapped him on the head. I can't move this money when I put it together to pay it back. Tonight at least I have to pay back 10,000 first, otherwise people are going to cut my left hand. Lu Yu's heart is about to curse his mother. I borrowed it, I'll give you $100,000 by 12 o'clock, and if I don't make $100,000, cut my hand. Because the duo's previous relationship was good enough, all Chuan was not polite. Before long, Chuan arrived at the entrance of a luxurious restaurant under Lu Yu's leadership. Genoa Misty Capital Restaurant? It's right here? Chuan felt that he had really found the right person to find Lu Yu. If it wasn't for him, how could Chuan have thought that there would actually be a hidden private casino in the middle of such a grandiose restaurant? Brother, I can tell you well, the people in here are either rich or noble, but anyone who is an individual, never, ever offend them. Lu Yu leaned against Chuan's side and whispered, I've been playing for so many years, and I've been to this field once, and it's a big one to play in, and to play with at least $10,000 to start. Chuan smiled slightly, you're really a gambler, and you're at ease when you say you won't gamble. I don't know why, but Lu Yu always felt a bit flustered when she looked at Chuan's confident appearance. He didn't know why. But it was already all over, so he simply crossed his heart. Anyway, I'm not lucky today, and looking at how confident Chuan is, he should have some kind of money-making door. Solely follow and see. Maybe it'll help turn the tide. The two had been waiting in front of the posh Genoa Mystic Capital restaurant until about 8 o'clock in the evening. Lu Yu had been talking to Chuan about some of the rules inside the clubhouse. As soon as it was 8 o'clock, limousine after limousine was parked in front of the restaurant, and all sorts of long-legged beauties wrapped around some rich-looking giants got out of the limousines. After seeing this scene of images, the smile at the corner of Chuan's mouth became more and more obvious. Lu Yu, also full of envy looking at the group of chattering women, pretty back licked the skin of the mouth. Brother, this group of women have problems with eyesight, like us, this kind of handsome men they do not like fat and fat rich people. Do you know why? Chuan wondered, why? Because they are short, less often, but also give money to give more. Unlike me, play once have to bargain half a day, once a good toss for a long time. Lu Yu seemed to recall the happy times after his winnings. Just then, a stretch Lincoln came from the distance and stopped directly in front of the hotel. Lu Yu got emotional after seeing this car and pulled Chuan by the hand. She's here too. What? Who is it? Chuan asked, looking at the car that had just stopped. You don't even know this? Lu Yu looked at the Lincoln with an admiring face. This is the granddaughter of the Li family in Magic City, Li Jai. I'm telling you, this girl is absolutely amazing. Yeah. Shu Wen couldn't help but look over there. Chapter 7, Pretending to be a rich man? Lying to girls? Chapter 7, Pretending to be a rich man? Lying to girls? As soon as he entered the restaurant, a kind of fresh scent unique to luxury hotels hit his nose. The hall was surrounded by so-called high-end people who were resting or talking, with 1 or 2 beauties with 6 or 7 points of face value standing more or less beside them. And Li Jai, who had just come in, was already nowhere to be found. Lu Yu pointed to a hidden door behind the hotel's elevator and said, "The real place is down there, the 2 standing at the door are security, it's almost impossible to make trouble here again. There are more than a dozen other security guards in here, this is called professionalism." Shu Wen nodded his head as he sniffed. "I thought that I would have to run away after making money, it seems that it is not necessary, and it is quite formal." Lu Yu looked helpless. "Big brother, this is what era, and say with $10,000 can win how much? One night to win $1 million. Hold up, for us, $1 million is a huge sum of money, but for others, $1 million is 9 cattle a hair, chaser lazy to chase you. Also." Shu Wen smiled and pondered in his mind, so how much winning in one night would make their hearts ache? While waiting, Shu Wen casually surveyed the people in the hall. Only after the car stopped, the passenger side ran down a big, burly man who jogged to the back of the car and pulled open the door. A pair of solid black high heels stretched out from the car, then gently stepped on the red carpet of the restaurant. Lu Yu was full of praise. Li Jai, known as one of the top 10 beauties in Mordor, amongst the underground entertainment venues in the whole of Mordor, 1/3 of them are owned by her grandfather. She usually doesn't show up much, I don't know what's wrong with her today, but she actually came in person. As Lu Yu whispered in Shu Wen's ear, Li Jai got down from the car and shook her hair that was draped over her fragrant shoulders, revealing a stunningly beautiful side face. The plum blossom is icy, but the snow is as cold as ice. As soon as she made her appearance, all those women standing in the doorway all paled in comparison. Even though Chu Wen had just spent that night with Nan Air last night, when he saw Li Jai again today, he felt a light in his eyes. In this life, it would be a man's luck if he could have a meal with her, let alone being able to climb into her bed. Lu Yu had a demented look on his face. With a slight smile, Chu Wen withdrew his eyes from Li Jai's body. "How did you get mixed up into the appearance of a licking dog?" "Come on, life goes on, if I don't lick it, there's plenty of others to lick it, in case someone else does." Li Jai had already walked into the restaurant amidst the bodyguard's guards, and Lu Yu was still full of lingering eyes. "Let's go, and take me in to see what's going on as well." Shu Wen stood up. Ever since he could see other people's wish lists, his thoughts and state of mind had been completely different. But the curiosity is still there. Because even the most iceberg beauty, that comes with a wish list. As soon as he entered the restaurant, a kind of fresh scent unique to luxury hotels hit his nose. The hall was surrounded by so-called high-end people who were resting or talking, with 1 or 2 beauties with 6 or 7 points of face value standing more or less beside them. And Li Jai, who had just come in, was already nowhere to be found. Lu Yu pointed to a hidden door behind the hotel's elevator and said, "The real place is down there, the 2 standing at the door are security, it's almost impossible to make trouble here again. There are more than a dozen other security guards in here, this is called professionalism." Shu Wen nodded his head as he sniffed. "I thought that I would have to run away after making money, it seems that it is not necessary, and it is quite formal." Lu Yu looked helpless. "Big brother, this is what era, and say with $10,000 can win how much? One night to win $1 million. Hold up, for us, $1 million is a huge sum of money, but for others, $1 million is 9 cattle a hair, chaser lazy to chase you. Also." Shu Wen smiled. While waiting, Shu Wen casually surveyed the people in the hall. 2 pot-bellied middle-aged men were casually climbing into conversation over glasses of wine, and hilariously, the first item on these 2 men's wish lists was almost exactly the same. They both had their eyes on each other's female companions and wanted to exchange them, but they were too embarrassed to ask, so they could only talk to each other about something or the other while dryly laughing. And then there are those with hundreds of thousands of dollars of famous watches on their wrists, who look svelte and unassuming, but inside their wish lists are one dirty little thought after another that they can't see. This scene gave Chu Wen a strange feeling. It seems that the more upwardly mobile the so-called upwardly mobile people here are, the more downwardly mobile they are. Also, the less you hide your primal desire. They have money and power, so they exercise little restraint on their desires, and they can have them if they want them. The 2 waited until the hall was almost full of people going in. Lu Yu came over from the side, holding a bottle of red wine, looking slightly shabby. He touched Shu Wen's elbow. Brother, more than 6,000 just one bottle. Shu Wen nodded. The two people, after passing through the security guard inspection at the entrance, led by the valet and passed through a luxurious and beautiful secluded long passageway, turned the corner, even if it was really coming to the underground hall. It was full of people at the moment. The rich people who looked like they were putting on a bit of tastefulness on the outside before arrived as if they had become real beasts. Everyone had a variety of wish lists written on their faces. He could unfold to understand whenever Shu Wen wanted to. No one can stop him from peering. The hall looked to be around 700 to 800 square meters or so, and that wasn't even counting the private rooms, just the hall. There are all kinds of things inside the field. Nearly 3 dozen bunny girls were the dealers, wearing ultra-short skirts with fishnet stockings underneath. In addition to these, the casino was full of beautiful women looking around with glasses of wine. They were like a snake with its head raised. Brother! Want to still use gambling? Lu Yu's palms were sweating. He was taking on a lot more pressure than Shu Wen. Haven't you been fooled enough? The purpose of their trip was not here, but the clubhouse 1 floor below. Lu Yu led Shu Wen through another flight of stairs to the basement level. Goo-doo. The bodyguard couldn't help but gulp covertly and temporarily avert his eyes from Li Jiai's legs. Among the monitor's images, Shu Wen and Lu Yu sat on one of the loose tables in the clubhouse. Ha! Li Jai, who was sitting in the box watching the monitor, saw a handsome-looking man on the field, who was about her own age, actually sitting in the hall's loose seats, and she couldn't help but be surprised out loud as well. Young people would have been scarce in a high-end underground entertainment center like this one. Even if a rich, wealthy young man came to play, Li Jai basically knew them all, but she had never seen this man before. Meanwhile, all they had on the table was a $6,000 bottle of foreign wine. Mind you, it's the cheapest one in the clubhouse. And the fact that you have to spend money to get into the clubhouse is the same as these two young men just buying a ticket. Just means he's definitely not some rich, wealthy young man or anything like that. Pretending to be a big spender? Li Jiai's cold and absolutely beautiful face suddenly showed a hint of interest. Come to Cheetah Girl? Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Selling the information gap. Not only was Li Jiai starting to get curious about Shu Wen. Even those women around the clubhouse had contempt in their eyes. They exchanged words. So young, just ordering a bottle of the cheapest foreign wine and sitting here waiting for a woman? My God, these days handsome-looking men really do have bad brains. A peripheral woman covered in pungent perfume rolled her eyes and craved the arm of the rich old man beside her even tighter. There was even a woman who quietly walked up to Shu Wen and said, "Little handsome, $6,000 is not money, but don't waste it. If you give it to me, at least it can make you happy for a whole night it." At this moment, Shu Wen ignored the eyes of these people. Instead, look around at the wish lists of these rich people. A bald guy in the elegant seat was going up and down on a pouring princess. Name, Pang Kwokfu. Wish list, 1. I lost a few $1,000,000 tonight, so I'll take this princess for a good night of dashing and spinning in a while. 2. When the public money arrives tomorrow, it will immediately return to the capital. 3. The back road is paved. If we lose again, we'll run. Expand to see more. The inner thoughts of everyone in here are even dirtier than the heart's desires in the outside world. All sorts of dark sides are revealed, and the enclosed space is like a safe house. Allow all sorts of unseemly thoughts to fester here. Shu Wen continued to look at the wishes of the people around him and finally found his target. Picking up a glass of red wine, he headed for the cubicle in the corner. At that moment a tall, thin man in decent clothes was drinking with his arms around two girls. As he walked closer, Shu Wen once again identified the contents of his list. Name, Zhang Wenbin. Wish list, 1. The hands of this batch of steel to hurry out, even if the loss of a little bit cannot be smashed in their own hands. 2. Down to the last few tens of thousands of dollars for one last splurge tonight. 3. If you can't get out in a week, you'll have to hide back home and farm. Expand to see more. Shu Wen naturally sat across from him. Zhang Wenbin frowned. It was supposed to be the last indulgence, and there were actually unintelligent brats to disturb the pleasure. Something? Would you mind letting the princess next to you leave for a moment? If there's something, you say something. I'm trying not to embarrass you in front of a beautiful woman. Zhang Wenbin was a bit angry and sat up straight, withdrawing his hand from his sister's smooth legs. Off, I'm not interested in hitting on you. Shu Wen shook the red wineglass in his hand and said slowly, you should only have a few tens of thousands of dollars left on you, and you still dare to spend it here? You. Zhang Wenbin instantly withdrew his arrogant expression, unable to speak. The beauty on the side took a look at Zhang Wenbin's reaction and also said with a bit of disgust, "A few tens of thousands of dollars? Didn't you also say that you're going to take me on a trip abroad? And buy me many, many bags? Definitely go, definitely buy." After pacifying him for a couple of sentences, he continued to say to Chuan, "Who the hell are you? If you keep bolting here, I'll call the security guards to kick you out." Chuan replied blandly, "I can buy up all your steel tonight." When Zhang Wenbin heard this, he was instantly energized. "You, how do you know?" Chuan didn't answer, but glanced at the beautiful woman beside him. Instantly understanding, Zhang Wenbin gave a kiss, then said, "Go back to your room and wait for me, I'll come after I talk about some business." The beautiful woman was reluctant, but after all, the money earned by her golden father had to be spent on her. You can't cut a man off. After the beautiful woman left, Zhang Wenbin immediately sat a little closer to Chuan again. "What's your name, little brother?" "Doesn't matter, just say how much." 9,000 tons. Price. Standard quote, 4,000 a ton. Chuan thought in his heart, although the steel market he did not know, but it is not important. "If I can get you cash right away, make a solid offer." Zhang Bin pondered slightly, 3,800, the absolute market minimum. 3,500. I'm losing too much money on this. Think about it yourself. After saying that, Chuan got up and was about to leave. "Don't, little brother." Zhang Wenbin hurriedly stopped Chuan. "You let me think." At this point he has turned on the boss mode. 9,000 tons of steel has been smashed in the hands of a few months, has not been able to find a suitable buyer. It was 3,850 when it came in, and I was thinking it would be okay to go back to the capital, but this kid just cut it by 300. When you do the math, you're still a few $1,000,000 in the red. But it's better than smashing it in your own hands, so grit your teeth and stomp your feet. Come on, little brother, if you're not talking big, you can show me the money tonight, 3,500 for 3,500. I have one more request, I'll give you the address later and it has to be shipped immediately. Zhang Wenbin heard this sentence, instantly feel reliable a lot, and one day earlier shipment for him is 1 day less custodial fee, really cannot wait. So he hurriedly nodded, "No problema, I will prepare now, in a moment you tell me the address, as long as it is within the range of Magic City, half an hour guaranteed delivery." "Okay, sit here and wait, I'll have my assistant bring you the address later." After saying that, Chuan left, and the glass of red wine was placed on the table. Obviously giving him a signal that I'll be back. Zhang Wenbin, who called to inform the workers to prepare, reacted at this moment. How did this kid know that I had a batch of steel that I didn't sell? Chuan didn't go much farther, but went to another corner booth and sat down again. Across the street sat a middle-aged man with a disheveled look and lifeless eyes. No beautiful women around for company either. This was the prey he had chosen long ago. Name, Wang Chang. Wishlist, 1. 10,000 tons of steel. If I can't find the leader, must kill me. 2. Quit when you finish this job, it's too much pressure. 3. Can't let my wife and kids know my current situation. Expand to see more. Chapter 9. The attention of the beauties from all sides. Chapter 9. The attentions of beauties from all quarters. I won't beat around the bush with you, seeing as you are. Wang Chang dragged his somewhat drunken eyes at the young man in front of him. Shaking his head, then continuing to drink his booze. I can supply you with 9,000 tons of steel. As if a muffled thunder, Wang Chang directly woke up from the wine. How did you? You know I wanted steel? It doesn't matter if a friend of yours referred you. You really have 9,000 tons? In stock? Chuan nodded and said, delivery will be made tomorrow. Wang Chang hurriedly sat up from his spread-out appearance, and slipped a bit due to the wine spilled on the floor. Don't lie, little brother. Do I look like I'm cheating when I come to hang out at a place like this? Wang Chang thought in his heart that the first time he came here he followed the chief. Not only was it non-rich, but it was all on a level he couldn't imagine. How can I trust you? After all, it's not child's play, although the head honcho handed himself the money and said the work couldn't be stopped any longer, and that he'd buy it as soon as he had the chance to place an order right away. But with a few words from a kid, it doesn't prove anything. Give me the address, ship it now and see it immediately. What? Now? That's right, but I have a request. The price is 4,600 a meal and full payment immediately upon seeing the goods in half an hour, and someone will officially sign the contract with you tomorrow. Full payment? Wang Chang began to mutter in his heart, I'm afraid this isn't a scammer, right? But on second thought, if he could really mobilize that much steel immediately, the full amount would be no problem, and 4,600 would be even less of a problem. Okay, I'll give you the address now. After saying that, he immediately sent the address to Chuan. Chuan forwarded Lu Yu directly to the first person he talked to and explained not to say anything. Lu Yu received the news and simply did not know what happened, but looking at the table, more than 6,000 red wine have come this far, what to be afraid of? After drying a glass of wine, he walked straight to Zhang Wenbin and then laid the address in front of him. Right here? Lu Yu nodded, not daring to speak. Looking at Lu Yu's state, although Zhang Wenbin still felt that it might not be right, but that young man had just said it with such certainty. The big deal is that it costs you shipping, and it's better to turn around and come back if it's not reliable than to miss out. So he called his workers directly and ordered the car out. And at this moment, the high heels on the feet of Li Jia, who was wiggling her legs in the box and watching the monitor, finally didn't hang on and fell on the carpet, revealing her good-looking toes. Interesting. It froze for about 2 seconds. Li Jia suddenly put on her shoes and got up from her chair. Miss, you. The bodyguard asked in a hurry. Don't you follow me? Li Jia turned around and finished in slight disgust before walking out of the box. As the door was slammed shut with a bang, that bodyguard's original respectful look vanished as he took a fresh look at the carpet that Li Jia's feet had stepped on earlier. The eyes were suddenly filled with evil thoughts. I'll give you 2 more days, and after that, I want you on your knees begging me. After he finished speaking, he hid the scowl on his face, and after walking out of the box, he watched from afar as Li Jia took a step in Chu Wen's direction. In fact, besides Li Jia, the several peripheral women in the arena had been observing Chu Wen as well. Their eyes were focused on Chu Wen's body to cross their fingers. One of the 2 teenage girls sitting at the innermost part of the clubhouse hall, after seeing Chu Wen, it was as if they had seen the prey with the most oil tonight. It was a pair of twin girls, Lu Yanqi and Lu Yanmeng. Unlike the other scantily clad peripheral girls, the twins were very tastefully dressed. To put it another way, other women came here in hopes of soliciting customers, but the 2 of them looked more like rich, wealthy ladies running out to have fun in general. The 2 didn't look very old, around their early 20s. The 2 sisters look alike, both with youthful and cute baby faces. But the body is indeed the very okay kind. The so-called child's face that. Her sister, Lu Yanqi, was wearing a plain white body shirt with thin-legged jeans and high heels. The same goes for his sister Lu Yanmeng. They were considered to be the flower girl level amongst the entire underground casinos, although they were far from being as absolutely and independently beautiful as Li Chia, but when placed in front of any other woman, they were not bad. If Li Jia's poise could be rated as a 9, then the twins' poise was definitely between 7.5 and 8. There are quite a few rich bosses who have fantasized about what it would be like to have these 2 sisters with them, but these people also know that there are women who are fine with spending money, but there are women who, with spending money, may not be fine. And the regulars at the clubhouse knew that the 2 sisters were different from the usual peripheral girls around. Their routine is to just not sleep with you, and to favor the winnings of the ingrates who willingly spend money for them. Again, it's all about the means. Looking at the eyes of the 2 sisters now, it was obvious that they had already taken a keen interest in Xu Wensheng. Sis, this little brother is quite good looking, did you hear that? Just like that, trying to make so much money. Although I don't believe he can make it, but by the looks of him he should be a rich kid too. It turned out that the 2 had been quietly following Chu Wen from the beginning, sitting next to him at a table each. They are always very attentive to fresh faces and prey. Yo, are you starting to have a heart attack again, TSK? This little handsome man is so pathetic, still don't know if he can make money. I guess it's going to be eaten up by you first by $400,000 or $500,000 again, sister. Pathetic. Sis, you're so generous, you actually want to leave him so much money. If you ask me, leave him a couple $100 for the cab fare even if I'm merciful. The 2 human women smiled at each other and were just about to head towards the table where Chu Wen was, but the smiles on their faces quickly stiffened. Lu Yanqi grabbed Lu Yanming's wrist. Wait, am I reading this right? What? Lu Yanming's wrist ached as her nails scratched it. The next moment, she saw that among the scattered tables, that beautiful young girl Li Jia, who was like an iceberg no matter who she was facing, slowly walked out from her exclusive box, and the direction of her aim was exactly the location of Chu Wen's table. She sat straight down on the scattering table at Chu Wen's table and then stared at Chu Wen. At this moment, Chu Wen also felt that someone was secretly observing him. Intuitively, he looked back and saw Li Jia sitting at his table. But he didn't care much and continued to sit there, looking at the middle-aged man in front of him. The two looked at each other speechlessly. The middle-aged man's heart was now extremely bottomless. If it was true, this little brother that had almost saved his life. If it's fake, I really don't know where to go after that. Half an hour passed quickly. Sis. Lee, what's this about Li Jia? Lu Yanming's eyes were filled with shock. 2 years, 2 whole years, and she never walks into a casino lobby like she does now. Does it mean? Lu Yanqi's footsteps also stopped. Just as the two sisters were shocked, a middle-aged man's voice came from over there. Little brother. Please check. $10 million in the twinkling of an eye. That's still a very good score for money-sensitive peripheral women. The bike didn't turn into a motorcycle, it turned into a ING aircraft carrier. Chapter 10, So she tried to kill herself. Chapter 10, So she tried to kill herself. Seeing this scene, Lu Yanqi and Lu Yanming clenched their teeth. The business made in half an hour made almost $10 million. Even the stock market, which is good at creating miracles, and even the futures market are unlikely. The only two places in the world where this could happen are lottery redemption centers and casinos. Such a fat fish. If they let him run away, the sisters could not be happy about it in any way. Sis, you're overly concerned. What kind of person is Li Jia? How could she possibly be interested in that boy? So as long as it's not her man, then it doesn't matter. Lu Yanming clenched her teeth, her fingers wisped through the hair on her forehead, and holding Lu Yanqi's hand, she also walked towards Chu Wen. It could be said that for a moment, the gazes of the two sisters and Li Jia were all focused on Chu Wen. Zhang Wenbin, who received the payment from Chu Wen, had his hands trembling. Little brother, you are really my savior na. If you need a brother in the future, no, you're a brother from today onwards, call me whenever you can use me for anything. Said, handing Chu Wen a business card. Then I'll leave my brother to his pleasure. After saying that, he bent down and bowed, and turned to leave. Looking at Zhang Wenbin's figure, Lu Yu was stunned. 4,600 times 9,000, 41.4 million, 3,500 times 9,000, 31.5 million. If you reduce it, 9.9 million. Since the moment he first stepped into this place 3 years ago, Lu Yu had never felt what the concept of so much money was. Brother. Let's go. Still leaving when you have money? Chu Wen shook his head. Lu Yu is to feel that all of this is not real, afraid of what will happen again. But Chu Wen had already seen Li Jia walking towards him, and he was curious to find out just what kind of wish list such a rich and beautiful woman would have. Chu Wen took out his cell phone and directly transferred $1 million to Lu Yu. Here, take it and pay off your debt as interest on the $6,000 I loaned you for the wine. Lu Yu was shaken. The next moment he couldn't say anything, his eyes reddening as he looked at the text message alert. Your card number with the tail number 9527 received a transfer in the amount of 1 million, Recruitment Bank. Brother. Well, have fun tonight and get a good look at other people's lives. Chu Wen waved his hand. It's only $1 million. It's really not a lot of money for yourself who can see the desires of other people's hearts. Although Chu Wen felt unimpressed, all the other people at the surrounding table who saw this scene were already on the verge of getting red-eyed. Borrow 10,000 and pay back $1 million? What kind of operation is this? My God, this little handsome guy is so generous. I'm afraid I can pick up $10,000 or $20,000 if I can just stay with him for a bit today. At this moment, Li Jia, who was wearing a long black backless dress, finally walked in front of them. The people around her had the good sense to get out of the way even after they glanced back at her. Li Jia's long hair then fell loose above her fragrant shoulders. The indifference in her eyes and the high-end aura of living in high society for years made the originally noisy neighborhood instantly much quieter. Interesting, this kid's luck is so contrary tonight. It really attracted the attention of the club side. The granddaughter of the old man personally came down to look for him. TSK. If it turns out that this kid is up to something, then isn't he screwed? Finished what? To be able to sit at a table with a woman of Li Jia's caliber, he's a ghost. I'm afraid he can still laugh out loud. The people around them were either envious or gloating. At this time, Lu Yanqi, Lu Yanming, the two pairs of twins, have also quietly stood in Chu Wen's side. They will not be like those ordinary peripheral women like up to pull arm around arm. They believed that Chu Wen could definitely know that a woman like Li Jia was not something he could desecrate. So with the exception of Li Jia, they don't lose to any of the women in the repertory. The love scene is like a battlefield, and possibly more complicated than a battlefield. Because here there is no killing, no fighting, here it's all about hearts and minds speculating about each other. Money is nothing more than a tool for people to use when they are competing. Chuan couldn't help but smile as he watched Li Jiayi sit across from him. In the present of yesterday, he wouldn't have thought twice about such a woman. Because the difference between the two is so great. But now, everything is different. Name, Li Jiayi. Wish list. 1. Solve the biggest current crisis in the clubhouse. 2. Discover the secrets of the boy before you. Expand to view more. Without hesitation, Chuan unfolded all of Li Jiayi's wish list while waiting for her to speak first. Very different from the others. It could be said that in this short period of time, Chuan had browsed through quite a few people's wish lists, but only Li Jiayi's wish list was the simplest. A campus goddess like Nan Air, as of the last time Chuan was with her. Her list of lists was 50 or 60 items long. Surrounded by his old classmates plus his good buddy Lu Yu, he has more than 30 items on his list. On average, basically all the men were pretty much around 30 bars, while the women were generally around 60. It's a difference between men and women because women always want more than men. Only Li Jiayi in front of her. She now has only 4 items among her wish list. 1. Solve the biggest current crisis in the clubhouse. 2. Discover the secrets of the boy before you. 3. If you have to get married, go on a long trip with any man before you get married, give up your first time, and then after you get married, make it public, so that the whole family of the man who wants to get his hands on you will be shamed. 4. Do all this and end your short life on a vast ocean. After watching all of this, Chuan once again raised his head to look at Li Jiayi's stunningly beautiful and moving yet unusually cold face, his heart in disbelief. This woman, no wonder the wish list is so short. So she tried to kill herself. Chapter 11, Free for You, do you want it? Chapter 11, Free for You, do you want it? After browsing through Li Jiayi's wish list, Chuan felt as if he had delved directly into her inner world. Many people are unhappy because they are poor. Many people are unhappy because they don't look good. It didn't occur to me that rich, good-looking Li Jiayi was actually unhappy. Perhaps it was because he did not have any feelings for Li Jiayi for the time being. Chuan actually had a feeling in his heart that the human world was indeed very fair. Brother, it feels like something is going to happen. Lu Yu's voice came from his ear. Chuan looked at Li Jiayi and surveyed her recklessly. Strangely enough, since Li Jiayi sat at the table, the other guests were a little quieter. They could all see that Li Jiayi had come down for Chuan. Although he didn't know what the relationship between the two was, it was better not to get involved in this mess. This man, however, grew his fortune by $10 million in a matter of minutes. Unbelievable. No matter what the reason was, Li Jiayi's pair of beautiful eyes just looked at Chuan so playfully. The man had never escaped her gaze from the moment he appeared on his own. Interesting, really interesting. What's the name? She suddenly smiled. That smile didn't matter, all the men around him almost went weak in the knees from it. No wonder the king was willing to win the smile of the beauty and beacons. If Li Jiayi could often show this kind of smile, I'm afraid that 99% of the men in the casino would abandon everything just to get her. After Chuan confirmed the balance in his card, he saw Li Jiayi speaking to himself. He suddenly stretched, got up from his chair, and said faintly, "Gone, no fun." What? My God, Li Jiayi is talking to him, and he's actually so disrespectful? Does he still want to live? Regardless of other people's surprised gazes, Chuan patted the cheap shirt he was wearing. Lu Yu, go to a room, let's have a good time today. Okay. For Lu Yu, Chuan's now even told him to kneel down and kowtow 3 times. Li Jiayi on the opposite side had not even thought that Chuan would actually be so insensitive. He came out of the box specifically for him, but he actually made his money and wanted to leave, and that's after he initiated the conversation? Play me? But Chuan ignored her. After he stood up, he looked around him. Naturally, he saw the 2 sisters, Lu Yanxi and Lu Yanmeng, who were deliberately standing beside him. The wish list above the 2 sisters' heads was clearly and plainly displayed in Chuan's eyes. Just in time. He thought to himself. Hi. I'll have my brother get a room upstairs, do you guys want to come up for some wine together? Chuan's eyes looked the 2 sisters up and down. Unbridled. And he was even more reckless where his gaze lingered. Lu Yanxi froze, then suddenly snorted a smile. Little brother, are you a little big appetite? For the 2 of us? The words were not finished. Sister is still hesitating. Sister Lu Yanmeng has already agreed with a smile. Yes, just chatting. Oh. The corner of Chuan's mouth curved. The feeling of being rich turned out to be like this. I'm afraid that the students on the campus of the Shanghai Theater can't imagine how the two beauties whose looks are completely comparable to those of Nanfanger will pounce on them just by opening their mouths, right? He then glanced provocatively at Li Jiai, who was sitting at the gambling table in a slight daze. Then with one hand on his sister and the other on his sister, he turned around and left the clubhouse lobby straight away. Within half a minute after Chuan left, there was silence in the clubhouse hall. Everyone was dumbfounded. Unbridled. That's a bit too much of a libertine. There's nothing wrong with making money and leaving, but abducting the eye candy sisters is a bit of an abomination. What's even worse is that this kid actually left Li Qiayi, the goddess of countless people's hearts, dry on the table just like that? Who the hell is he? After a long time, Li Jiai was finally not surprised, and she retracted her gaze from where Chuan had left. The heart already had a judgment for Chuan. I don't know how he was able to find out about making money, but it was certainly more than just luck. Young, handsome, driven, and giving money in a way that doesn't look in the least like a poor kid who's never seen money before. It shows that there is definitely more to him than meets the eye. Maybe he's just some rich kid pretending to be poor and playing around. More importantly, the way he surveyed the woman's eyes was very wanton. Li Jiai even felt that Chuan was able to directly see her inner world when he looked at her. In his eyes, it was as if he was not wearing a piece of himself. Especially the way he walked away with his arms around the twin sisters at the end, it was clear that he was a scumbag to the core. Amidst the silence, the smile at the corner of Li Jiai's mouth grew stronger. There was actually a sense of vengeful coolness in that smile. A rich, capricious man with family power behind him and a total scumbag. If after I marry that man, he finds out that my first time actually went to such a disgusting man, he'll be furious, won't he? Of course, wouldn't it be even better if it could cause entanglements and collisions between the families behind them? Li Jiai's fingers that were slowly tapping on the gambling table suddenly stopped. That's him. I just don't believe that with my looks and body, you would not want it if I gave it to you for free? Chapter 12, What's the longest time? Null. Chapter 13, Full system activation. Null. Chapter 14, You're going to get me in the end. Null. Chapter 15, Life is good for the rich. Null. Chapter 16, Outright scum? Null. Chapter 17, Sending your corpse to the Chen family. Null. Chapter 18, This design is quite humanized. Null. Chapter 19, Voices in a cheap hostel. Null. Chapter 20, This is the Sassy, don't mess with me. Null. Chapter 21, The Angry Reek. Null. Chapter 22, Fatal Attraction. Null. Chapter 23, I'm done pretending, I'll show my cards. Null. Chapter 24, You asshole. Null. Chapter 25, An audacious plan. Null. Chapter 26, The crazy point swiping begins. Null. Chapter 27, Touching you? Do you deserve it? Null. Chapter 28, In your list, there's Li Qiayi. Null. Chapter 29, Is the girl cranky? I like it. Null. Chapter 30, Come to the left and draw a dragon with me? Null. Chapter 31, This stupid woman has had too much to drink. Null. Chapter 32, Chen Anren's home. Null. Chapter 33, Li Qiayi, Wait for me. Null. Chapter 34, What's your name, sir? Chu. Null. Chapter 35, The wedding banquet begins, the Chen family comes to town. Null. Chapter 36, Ghostly, come out. Null. Chapter 37, The greatest show on earth. Null. Chapter 38, Does he really want to die? Null. Chapter 39, Chu Wen appears. Null. Chapter 40, My last name is Chu, my first name is Wen. Null. Chapter 41, Approaching by each step. Null. Chapter 42, My fiance's name is Chu. Null. Chapter 43, Chen Wanyang's mind tricks. Null. Chapter 44, The reaction of the Magic City executives. Null. Chapter 45, The confusing Chu family. Null. Chapter 46, Forced collections? Null. Chapter 47, A few joys and a few sorrows. Null. Chapter 48, Reorganizing the Li family. Null. Chapter 49. Null. Chapter 50, The Mysterious Man. Null. Chapter 51, Won Wonjeon's Omission. Null. Chapter 52, The Beginning of the Plan. Null. Chapter 53, Who else? Null. Chapter 54, I Have a Sister. Null. Chapter 55, Farewell Banquet. Null. Chapter 56. Hello, my name is Chun Anran. Null. Chapter 57, The Chen Family's First Step. Null. Chapter 58, I'll give you a few $100 million. Null. Chapter 59, Buy the bill before you go. Null. Chapter 60, The Beginnings of a Sphere of Influence. Null. Chapter 61, Fraternity Party. Null. Chapter 62, Wang Xiening? It's actually a. Null. Chapter 63, The Chen Family Makes a Move. Null. Chapter 64, Chen Wenhai's Core Power. Null. Chapter 65, The Barking of the Liu Family. Null. Chapter 66, Come on, let's do it by the family law. Null. Chapter 67, The Secret of Han Dongjuan's Surface Couple. Null. Chapter 68. Want to know? Sit down and talk. Null. Chapter 69, Me? Have you heard of the Chu family in the capital? Null. Chapter 70, You'll be my blood brother from now on. Null. Chapter 71, followed by A Mysterious Man. Null. Chapter 72, The Mysterious Video. Null. Chapter 73, Confronting Chen Anran. Null. Chapter 74. Be a good dog for me. Null. Chapter 75, Chen Anran's Messiness. Null. Chapter 76, The Real Capital Chu Family. Null. Chapter 77, Survival in the Cracks. Null. Chapter 78, Everything is Just Right. Null. Chapter 79, Wave After Wave of Excitement. Null. Chapter 80, The Life of the Rich. Null. Chapter 81, There are so many bugs here. Null. Chapter 82, Lack of Social Beatings. Null. Chapter 83, The Wonderful Hands of Chu-won. Null. Chapter 84, Prologue to the Destruction of the Wang Family. Null. Chapter 85, There's More Than That to Settle with You. Null. Chapter 86, The First Meeting of Frenemies. Null. Chapter 87, Chen Wenhai is a softie? Null. Chapter 88, Some Things Can't Wait Too Long. Null. Chapter 89, Wang Xiening, Head of the Wang Family. Null. Chapter 90, Drinking Coke is Bad for Your Health. Null. Chapter 91, Healing Childhood with a Lifetime. Null. Chapter 92, Saving Wang Xiening. Null. Chapter 93, The Fledgling of the Magic City Chu Family. Null. Chapter 94, Leaning on the Big Tree. Null. Chapter 95, The Job Fair that Sensationalized the Magic City. Null. Chapter 96, Office Romance? Null. Chapter 97, Plain Ecological Physical and Chemical Environmental Specialist. Null. Chapter 98, Let the Chen Family Be Destroyed. Null. Chapter 99, Destroying Their Foundations and Cutting Off Their Talents. Null. Chapter 100, Like to Role Play? Null. Chapter 101, The Target Appears. Null. Chapter 102, Beauty and the Beast. Null. Chapter 103. Null. Chapter 104, It's Getting Interesting. Null. Chapter 105, Rising to 10 Million Wagers. Null. Chapter 106, I'm All In. Null. Chapter 107, The $110 million Number. Null. Chapter 108, The Mystery of the Shocking Plan Revealed. Null. Chapter 109, Death of the CEO of the Chen Family. Null. Chapter 110, The New CEO of the Chen Family Group. Null. Chapter 111, Role Playing with You? Null. Chapter 112, The Next Target. Null. Chapter 113, Shu Wen's terrifying plan. Null. Chapter 114, Legend of the City Lord. Null. Chapter 115, It's hard to play a game. Null. Chapter 116, Shu Wen charged money again. Null. Chapter 117, This is Fate. Null. Chapter 118, Starting with a weakness of character. Null. Chapter 119, Forced to pack Chu Mengting? Null. Chapter 120, The Chen family is not at peace. Null. Chapter 121, What does it mean to be truly destined? Null. Chapter 122. Not as much as I know. Null. Chapter 123, The murderer reveals himself. Null. Chapter 124, Until this moment. Null. Chapter 125, Surprised nothing happened again? Null. Chapter 126, Weakness of the capital Chu family. Null. Chapter 127, Tian Xinxin's first arrival. Null. Chapter 128, A movie just opened? Null. Chapter 129, Chu Wen is the real director. Null. Chapter 130, Chu Mingting changed her style? Null. Chapter 131. Still a scumbag. Null. Chapter 132, Events begin to ferment. Null. Chapter 133, Swapping sides. Null. Chapter 134, I owe you a favor. Null. Chapter 135, Leakage of information. Null. Chapter 136, Winds from the mountain rain. Null. Chapter 137, Jealousy under the smoke. Null. Chapter 138, The humble Lu family head. Null. Chapter 139, Teasing is fun. Null. Chapter 140. Shut up, you ungrateful thing. Null. Chapter 141, Justice incarnate. Null. Chapter 142, Revenge? The Chu family's shock. Null. Chapter 143, A match of merit in mental planning. Null. Chapter 144, This picture is a bit inappropriate for children. Null. Chapter 145, A shocking change, the Chen family changes masters. Null. Chapter 146, Sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Null. Chapter 147. Whether you stay or go is up to you. Null. Chapter 148, Farsightedness, Super League. Null. Chapter 149, This son will achieve great things. Null. Chapter 150, The Chu family takes action. Null. Chapter 151, You have to call Sister Jai. Null. Chapter 152, Who agrees and who refuses. Null. Chapter 153, Discharge of concerns, alliance completion. Null. Chapter 154, Suppressing Dongshan group? Null. Chapter 155, The Chu clan commences operation. Null. Chapter 156, Tian Xinxin's thoughts. Null. Chapter 157, The transformed Chu Mingting. Null. Chapter 158, Untouchable resolutions. Null. Chapter 159, Surprise. The Chu family's children show up. Null. Chapter 160, Meng Tingwei when she comes, Shu Mengting when she leaves. Null. Chapter 161, Belonging to Chu Wen's heartland. Null. Chapter 162, Formulation of a counterattack plan. Null. Chapter 163, Yanjing, Meeting of the two parties. Null. Chapter 164, Punished? Turning a blind eye? Null. Chapter 165, As long as you're happy. Null. Chapter 166, Unseen threats. Null. Chapter 167, Elder Chu who sees through everything. Null. Chapter 168, Embarrassment, Caught eavesdropping. Null. Chapter 169, Suddenly visiting uncle? Null. Chapter 170, I turn a blind eye to your performance. Null. Chapter 171, Solving misunderstandings. Null. Chapter 172, Anachronistic calls. Null. Chapter 173, An interesting airplane story. Null. Chapter 174, Confession, the Chu family's determination. Null. Chapter 175, Vague threats. Null. Chapter 176, Zhu Lingfeng's wish list. Null. Chapter 177, he can actually see into the heart. Null. Chapter 174, regular meeting of the Chu family higher-ups. Null. Chapter 175, Battle of Tongues. Null. Chapter 176, choosing the Chu family successor. Null. Chapter 181. Null. Chapter 182, Return to the Magic City. Null. Chapter 183, What does Chen Wenhai want? Null. Chapter 184, Arrogant Chu Lingfeng. Null. Chapter 185, A caveat from Chu Wen. Null. Chapter 186, Chu Haiyuan's death. Null. Chapter 187, The turbulent Chu family. Null. Chapter 191, Perception of Chen Wenhai. Null. Chapter 188, Forced to leave Yanjing. Null. Chapter 189, Two women's controversy. Null. Chapter 190, The coming storm. Null. Chapter 192, Chu Lingfeng's motive. Null. Chapter 193, This is the trust one give you. Null. Chapter 194, Deployment completed. Null. Chapter 195, The Chen family takes action. Null. Chapter 196, Chen Wenhai's rage. Null. Chapter 197, Riches and risks. Null. Chapter 198. Null. Chapter 199, Prying for information. Null. Chapter 200, Shock under heavy news. Null. Chapter 201, Electoral voting. Null. Chapter 202, Shi Lingyun's determination. Null. Chapter 203, The unwillingness of the heart. Null. Chapter 204, Deeply discussing Luishan. Null. Chapter 205, Life lessons. Null. Chapter 206, Chen Wenhai's new plan. Null. Chapter 207, Angry Chu Wen. Null. Chapter 208, Who leaked the news? Null. Chapter 209, How could it be her? Null. Chapter 210, Planning to test Tian Xin. Null. Chapter 211, A half-hearted promise. Null. Chapter 212, Each has his own agenda, testing each other. Null. Chapter 123, No greater mourning than death in the heart. Null. Chapter 214, Don't ask, something will happen. Null. Chapter 215, It's impossible. Null. Chapter 216, The basket of water is empty. Null. Chapter 217, Sinfonia has its troubles too. Null.